The FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem made a statement that insinuated that it might be time for a new F1 team to join the grid, and many couldn't help but agree. But since the statement was unofficial and didn't clearly say that he was representing the association's interest, how likely would a new team be joining soon? What are the steps required for a team to join F1, and which teams are the most likely to join? In 2016, the American team Haas joined Formula 1, but it had gone through a rigorous process before it could join due to previous experiences it had with teams like Caterham and Manor. Those teams had folded up without lasting long on the track due to lack of sufficient funds or some other reason, and the FIA didn't want something similar to reoccur. After Haas joined, no other team got to join Formula 1, despite the association wanting a new team to make the teams on the racetrack 11. None of them were suitable. Several teams, like the Andrettis, have stated their intention of joining the team in the past year, but they were unable to make an official request. Ben Sulayem has mentioned that they might be willing to accept a new Formula 1 team on the grid. In a tweet he made on Monday, January 2, 2023, Ben Sulayem said he had asked his team at the FIA to look at launching an expressions of interest process for prospective new teams for the FIA F1 World Championship. Although it was not an official statement, it showed that the possibility of an expansion on the grid is very high, as the governing body is already showing interest. Everyone might be excited to see a new team race the tracks, but joining Formula 1 is easier said than done. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome, no matter how determined the potential team or governing body may be. How would intending teams go about it if the governing body officially announces that they're ready to pick new members? As mentioned earlier, only some teams can join Formula 1. So there's a procedure to follow to filter out the teams that will only survive for a short time. The first step of the procedure is the one Ben Sulayem indicated in his tweet, the expression of interest process. In this process, the intending teams send a formal request stating their intention to be one of the teams. The process was launched in May 2015 by the FIA to weed out unsuitable teams by conducting due diligence. It entails 4 key areas. Number 1. The technical ability and resources of the team. This only needs a little explanation because one can't emphasize how important it is for an F1 team to have enough technical resources. If a team falls short technique-wise, the competition won't be fair like the FIA wants it to be, because they wouldn't be able to catch up to the incredible teams already on the grid. Number 2. The ability of the team to raise and maintain sufficient funding to allow participation in the championship at a competitive level. Teams like Caterham and Manor dropped out of Formula 1 just a few years after joining, basically because they could no longer sustain their team. To avoid a similar occurrence, the governing body included this point. Number 3. The team's experience and human resources. The more experienced the team is, the better its chance of survival on the F1 racetracks. If the team personnel is experienced, they'll also know what it entails to be a Formula 1 team, which would make the governing body more confident that the team would thrive. And number 4, the FIA's assessment of the value that the candidate may bring to the championship as a whole. It's important that every Formula 1 team has something to offer in terms of value, as they can't just be racing without having a positive impact one way or the other. After the FIA receives applications and the team checks all the boxes for the criteria mentioned above, they do further inspections and interviews. When that is done, they decide whether or not the team is suitable for the grid. The last team that made it through the tender process was the Haas team in 2014. Now that Ben Sulayem has suggested that they might accept entries for the new teams, another question arises. What do Formula 1 teams currently on the track think about the decision? F1 currently gives out revenue to teams through prize money determined by the championship position and fixed payments divided 10 ways because there are only 10 teams. The splitting of the money was made more equitable in the most recent Concord Agreement, which was signed in 2020. Now, all teams are getting a fairer share of the pie. The teams being 10 in number makes everything easy. If an 11th team is added, that automatically means that the share each team would receive would reduce. It's even said to decrease by about 10%. This means that they must be convinced that adding a new team would benefit them. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff asked in a statement concerning the issue how they can prove that adding a new team would be beneficial and not detrimental to both the team and Formula 1. If a team comes in, how can you demonstrate that you're bringing in more money than it's actually costing? The FIA considered the question and realized it was valid, so they decided to do something about this. The governing body put a dilution fund in the Concord Agreement to ensure that the F1 teams on the grid would not lose. The agreement states that any team ready to join F1 is to pay an incredible sum of $200 million. The money would be divided between the existing teams to make up for the 10% they would lose if a new team joined. But the dilution fund was set a few years back, and now most F1 teams hint that $200 million would not be enough because of the difference in cost and expenses. One of those who complained about the dilution fund being too low is Gunther Steiner. Quote, "The dilution was set a few years ago when the value of Formula One was different. I think one of the things will be, should we readjust it to the current market rate, which is a lot more than that. But I do think that it's a very difficult process to do." End quote. Many might wonder why it's important for Formula One teams to accept the entry of the new team. This is because even though the governing body makes a major part of the decision, other F1 teams are commercial right holders and have to agree and be content with the arrival of a new team. Talking about teams that might want to join Formula One, one team that has been clamoring to join Formula One and is yet to be given a chance is Andretti. This family dynasty led by Michael Andretti has been pushing for a Formula One team for a while now. He revealed in Miami their intention of setting up the team's headquarters in Indianapolis, with all the necessary features. He has also been getting on track to engage with several people who might help him with the process, including Ben Sulayem and McLaren's CEO Zak Brown. Alpine's owner Renault is also said to be the most likely engine partner for the team. It seemed to many that the only thing holding him back was the opportunity to show his interest had been closed. Now that it looks like the door might open, the team would probably be the first to state their intentions. The fact that the team is an American team, just like Haas, is getting people excited. Andretti's team almost checks all the boxes on the tender process. Their technical ability cannot be denied, as they have performed greatly in IndyCar, supercars, and sport car racing. This also showcases the high level of experience the team has. The funding issue is not even to be questioned, as Andretti has emphasized several times. The team intends to benefit from F1's current US boom to ensure several sponsors and partners are in place. The only problem lies where the FIA has to consider the value the team would bring to the table, and whether the other F1 teams would agree to an 11th team. But in the real sense, is an 11th team necessary? F1 has clarified that they are open to adding a new team only if it would be valuable. As to whether it's necessary, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali made a statement in August 2022, indicating that the current quantity of the team was not a problem, and he didn't see any weaknesses in the teams to indicate that it might fold up. Therefore, it's not necessary, but it's not a problem either. Stefano also mentioned the qualities they needed in the team. Quote, "We need to have an entity or a team or a manufacturer that is really solid, is really strong, and has the full commitment for an incredible long-term future." End quote. Not long after his announcement, Audi mentioned they would join Formula One in 2026 as an engine manufacturer. If the FIA finally launches the expression of interest process, several prospective teams would come out to show interest, and it would be fun to see the team struggle for a spot in Formula One. Thank you for watching. Kindly like and subscribe. Also, leave comments in the section down below. Until then, see you next time.